Hey, and welcome back to Behind the Music, guys. I hope you enjoyed the last video of my cover of Forever Now by Green Day. And now this time you get to see behind the music, or behind the mix, exactly, of Forever Now by Green Day, which is off their new album, Revolution Radio, which is probably one of the most difficult Green Day songs I've ever mixed or covered, recorded, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Simply by the fact that usually Green Day songs are very simple. They just have probably like two guitars, three guitars, maybe four, just drums and a bass. And then, Billy Joe always does his main vocal track with some doubles and, his two backing tracks. And maybe he'll do the oohs and ahs. But this particular song, Forever Now, is loaded with stuff. Well, at least according to what I heard. I'm pretty sure I've missed a few things. But, I tried my best to, put out high quality Green Day covers for you guys. And, I really don't see that many high quality Green Day covers, I guess. Not trying to bash anybody, but, yeah. So, anyway, let's go through this song, Forever Now. And what we're going to do for this song in particular that I didn't do in the last video, which might make this video a little lengthy, only because this song is like a 7-minute monster. We're going to go through each little part of the song. I guess little transitions in the parts of the song. So, we got the Somewhere Now part. We got the Good Life. We got the little intro part. We're going to go through each part of that song, of this song. And we're just going to, go through the breakdown of how I got the sounds. And more specifically, the song is filled with automation. So if I were to just make everything on volume for once, you can see there's a lot of automation movements. So if I just increase this all to medium, a lot of automation movements on pretty much all parts of the song, especially the drums, because this song really changes dynamically. So we're going to be focusing a lot in this video about automation and how we're making the song sound dynamic, not only through, the structure of the song, but also through, automation and what really sets you apart from other mixing engineers. Because, anyone can, throw in a preset and, just make something sound good. I guess using someone else's preset, but it also comes with your also EQ moves and your compression moves depending on the context, but also the automation, which is really the most creative part, I think, of the process, because it's the volume changes, the EQ changes and stuff like that, which really makes or breaks the song. So anyway, let's get started with this video because it's going to be long. I'm pretty sure it's going to be around 20 minutes. So hang in there, guys. I'm making this for you so that, you get to see how I get the quality of these covers and how you can also get the quality of the covers. And as always, well, actually from now on, I'm going to be releasing the stems for all my songs that I will be releasing from now on. So yes, at the end of this video, you will be able to get the Forever Now stems, right? So you could even make your own covers, just use the instruments and just, record your own. Or if you ever felt like you wanted to mix Green Day at a high quality level, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but yeah, you can do that now. So you can get your practice in there as well. And that's pretty much why I started this thing, because I love Green Day. So anyway, so let's start this, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to start by playing the intro and take a look at that. My name is Mason and I'm freaking out. Okay, so first of all, look at these scratch guitars. So these scratch guitars, pretty much what it has is nothing, because sometimes you just have to, get the right sound from the beginning and just leave it alone. You have to learn to leave it alone, and I learned that from Manny Marroquin. And pretty much the whole purpose of this is my default setting for VMR. So all it really has is just the 4KE setting on there and maximum drive, because I like to really push things. So that's pretty much what that sound is. So you can just listen to that. My name is Mason and I'm freaking out. Right? So there's really nothing going on. I did try to use a filter on it before, but it didn't really sound like the song, I guess. So I just ended up not using that. And of course we have the VTM. My name is Mason and I'm freaking out. I know that Billy Joe or like recently has gotten to a lot of like distortion and really heavy vintage sound. And I know that this song is not mixed by CLA; it's mixed by Andrew Sheps, and who has a very very different way of mixing. And I can really tell from the production because if you listen to something like Trilogy or American Idiot, the production is completely different. So this album, Revolution Radio, has really gone beyond what Green Day has done before in the past, and they really just were able to let loose. But enough about them. Let's talk about the mix. So let's get to our favorite part here, verse 1. I call verse 1, and we're going to listen all the way to chorus 1 here. I thought therefore I was, well, I can't really figure it out. I sit alone with my thoughts and prayers. Scream out my memories as if I was never there. Okay, so verse 1. Let's see. So verse 1, pretty much the whole band comes in and we have our guitars here, which I will probably only explain once because it's pretty much, I don't have to really explain it again because it's the same guitar track throughout. Anyway, so guitars, I believe the amp I used was a Plexi head, and I fiddled around a lot with the settings and also used the VMR in the Logic session where I recorded it and adjusted the sound there as well to get the tone as close as I could to the record. And in terms of copyright, I'm not going to play the song only because I don't want this to get taken down. Anyway, guitars. Let's focus on guitars first. So if I just sold these guitars. So yeah, you can hear there's a lot of crackle. That probably sounds annoying to you, but in the mix you actually don't hear it. So that's actually just distortion coming from the Neve 1073 here. So you can see my settings here for the guitars. It was just like I pushed the distortion here a little bit, pushed the drive on the virtual channel, make the guitar sound big, which is weird, and I haven't learned this since CLA taught me it. I used to always cut out the low end of guitars and just make the bass fill it in. But, and I was thinking, I don't want to add low end because it's going to sound like too much bass. But, when you just try it, it actually just sounds really good, and it doesn't really affect your bass as much as you think it would. So, yeah, I really just boosted it to taste to make sure that it didn't really sound too boomy, especially on palm mutes. And I added some presence as well. Even though the guitars on this record don't really sound that bright. If it was a CLA mix, yes, it would have sounded very bright. But remember, it's Andrew Sheps. And then there's a lot of mid-range that I couldn't get in the original recording. So I added a lot of top end, mid-range and 800 range for that as well. And I had to cut out a lot of the top end as well because it was sounding too bright in the original. And then I did actually end up cutting off some of the low end, just a little bit though. And the curves on these filters are very, very shallow, so they're not going to be cutting it very drastically. So we could just listen to the guitars again. Listen to it in context. I thought therefore I was, well, I can't really figure it out. I said, so at the end there, you heard some guitar like ringing off in the end. I call this Alex guitar because there was once a guitarist I worked with named Alex who kind of played with these kind of riffs all the time. So when I was recording it, I was like, oh, okay, I guess it sounds like it. So I guess you can do that. So let's listen to it by itself if I just do that. And we'll just solo it here. I know it probably doesn't sound like that in the actual recording, but I just wanted to make it blend somehow with it, because if you listen really closely, you can hear a third guitar in there, and pretty much that's how it sounds. And the settings is just nothing because it just sounds fine by itself. I didn't have to change anything. So remember, you don't have to always like EQ something. Sometimes it's fine. We're looking for balance. So I thought therefore I was, well, I can't really figure it out. I sit alone with my thoughts and prayers. So if you look at it, like the automation doesn't even change. It's just normal. What did I just say? The automation does change. I bring it down lower during the guitars come in, and I bring it up for that part where it does need to resonate. And then I just left it for the rest because, I actually didn't hear any difference when I did any changes, so I just left it. let's talk about the vocal. Yes, this vocal part is very, very. It was very tricky to get because, one, I'm not using the same mic, the U47 that Billy Joe is using, and there's a different room, and he's Billy Joe, so my voice is different as well. He's become a lot more raspier as time went on. But let's listen to these vocals. Yes, there is tuning on it. I did use Waves Tune for this just to tighten things up. I kind of didn't like how Waves Tune did it, but if I use Melodyne, it gets all fucked up when there's time changes in the song. So, and I'm just too lazy to do that whole thing, so I just ended up using Waves Tune. It felt kind of bad. I could have left it untuned as well, like the original song, but I have this weird OCD where I want everything to be perfect. So, anyway, let's listen to the vocals with all the plugins on it.
I thought therefore I was, well I can't really figure it out. I sit alone with my thoughts and prayers, scream out my memories as if I was never there.
So yeah, a lot going on here, especially in the new Green Day productions. He loves to have distortion in his voice, as I read in an article once. So, you know, you just gotta do what he does. So pretty much, let's look what we got here. So we just got our standard tape, just to have the tape analog sound on there. Then we have my trusty VMR. Now I got a lot of distortion on here. So as usual, we have our 4KE, which is just driving at 18. Then we got the 1073, which gives us that top end, and then we got the FG76, which gives us that beefy mid-range that we want. And of course, I didn't use any cutting EQ, which I usually use the air EQ for, but we didn't do that this time. We just left at 400, and I just cut it all out at about 4 dB. And it's a very wide curve, so it does it very gently, and it doesn't cut out too much of the mid-range. Like I said before, 4K is an annoying frequency, so I do always cut that out for the vocals because it becomes too pokey. And for this particular song, there wasn't a lot of brightness to Billy Joe's vocal, for at least this vocal at least. So I cut out a lot of the top end as well using the filters, and I also cut at the low end for the filters as well, and trimmer just to balance it out at the end.
I thought therefore I was, well I can't really figure it out.
Go!
I sit alone with my thoughts and prayers, scream out my memories as if I was never there.
Then of course, using my CLA vocal again, just to throw in that compression. I really like the compression on the CLA vocals. So that's why I did use the CLA vocal for this song as well. And you saw that in the last video. Of course, we have our de-esser, which is this one. I actually had to do a lot of de-essing just because it just sounded like Billy Joe's using some kind of lisp kind of sound. You can hear that kind of a lispy sound. So I actually went a lot more this time on that instead of, before where it was about 30%. This time we're actually going beyond the default.
I thought therefore I was, well I can't really figure it out.
Alright, and then again, remember the philosophy of the C4. We're just cutting out that annoying mid-range that does build up. And then we got our vocal writer as well. So there's a lot of special effects we got on here. So we got the tape distortion, which is using the repeater. And that's just to add some extra distortion in there, just a little bit though. So if you look at the mix window here, I added only just a little bit here, so it's not too bad. Then we got our plate and our slaps. So the plate vocal is that kind of reverb you can hear in the back, just slightly, and also like a CLA kind of slap where it's like a John Lennon slap, which we use here, which I actually used from a preset as well. And then we also, here's our plate vocal using the Verb Suite Classics as well. So, yeah, so it's very, very subtle, very, very subtle. And I did a lot of work just to try and get that very, very subtle wetness and not too wet.
I thought therefore I was, well I can't really figure it out. I sit alone with my thoughts and prayers, scream out my memories as if I was never there.
Right, so that's pretty much, that part here. Okay, so let's go to the next part. which would be, let's take a look at the bass, actually. Bass. Okay, so the bass here, same kind of principle. I'm using that same bass guitar. We have the VTM just to add, the vintage sound. VMR, I actually just used to boost the mid-range. Oopsies. CLA bass this time to actually add some more mid-range, some sub for lower end speakers, some compression, and just default setting on the growl. And then the fuzz, of course, as before in the last video. What just happened? In the last video, CLA bass is adding that, and also cutting out the lower end in that fuzz bass. I didn't get to show you the fuzz bass last time in solo, so let's listen to that. Okay, so it's pretty simple. So now we have the drums, which is probably the most important part. So I'll just break down each of these EQ set, or I guess effects on each one first, just so we can get the initial breakdown. And then what pretty much happens after that, as you can see in this, is just bare automation. So lots and lots of automation, right? So let's see a kick. The kick drum, I'd use the modern kick this setting this time, and I did change up a lot of the things here. So let's take a listen to the kick drum. Oops, let me just put it, yeah. So they don't use their typical kick drum in this song, so there's not a lot of brightness as there was before. So you don't see me boosting too much in the brightness this time, and just getting me a little bit more punch this time, and using a different compressor. I wanted to try out the 1176 on the modern, and it actually sounded really good. Because I think with the FG401, it was a little bit too punchy, so I just kind of used the regular 1176, which I'm used to. Then we have our snare drum again, so let's check out the snare drum. Wow, why does it sound so thin, Mason? Well, that's because, remember, the overheads is where all the low end comes from usually, and I just use the snare top just to give it that crack that's combined with the overheads, right? And we also want to give it some low end too. We're not just making it like a tap; we're making it like it's an actual snare drum, right? So we added the EQ air, get some top end here. We have some distortion, some harmonics here. Makes it thick, give it some shimmer on the top, and of course we have our compression to give that punch, and we have some regular cutting out of some frequencies that were a little bit annoying, and some more low end as well. Hi-hats, not really much going on. I just used the preset just to let it blend a little bit better. Toms, usually I just, because the toms are already kind of ready to go, I don't really have to like cut up frequencies as much, so I just use a nice preset for floor toms, and it usually just ends up working. And I usually just only have to adjust top end and the compression, and maybe the revival, like the thickness of how thick I want the toms to be. Remember overheads, right? So the overheads, there's actually a lot going on in the overheads this time, only because they played a big role in the song. Remember, it's a different mixer. It's not CLA. CLA's his style is a lot different than Andrew Shep's. So, I just added the low end again, cut out some of the boxiness, added a little bit of more of that bite, and some compression just to smooth it out. And then I use a de-esser this time, because usually when it starts getting compressed and you start wanting to turn up the overheads, it does get a little bit painful to listen to, so I use an overhead soften preset to tame those frequencies that kind of just annoy you. So let's actually listen to the overheads. Right, so let's turn it off. Sounds kind of boring, right? So listen to it with the combination with the snare drum now. Right? So that's it. It really is all one big sound. Now the room mics, which is kind of funny. I didn't use them. I didn't actually use them until I think about Somewhere Now. But yeah, I didn't really use them because when I was listening to the record, remember they recorded this in a small studio. They didn't record it in a big studio. And the rooms that were associated with the sample kit was a little bit too big of a sound. So I kind of just left it and kept it a more intimate sound by taking out the room mics and didn't put them in until about, I think, the bigger parts of the song. So let's listen to verse 1 once again.
I thought therefore I was, well, I can't really figure it out. I sit alone with my thoughts and prayers. Scream out my memories as if I was never there. Standing at the edge of the world. It's giving me the chills. Looking down the edge of the world, lost in the tango, it's freaking me out. Burning lights and blackouts.
Okay, so let's go to the chorus part. So what we can see here is that the automation does change. That's the first thing we notice. Everything does get a bit louder. The overheads get louder. And the drums start to become... what I noticed with Andrew Sheps is that when there's bigger parts in the song, like the drums don't always have to be at the front. I know CLA, with the older Green Day productions, the drums are always like the big part of the song. Always at the forefront and the vocal. But for Andrew Sheps is a different guy, right? So you really have to adjust and make those drums kind of sound like they're buried in this wall of guitars, which is what I think Andrew was going for with this song. So let's look at the new element that's in here. It's just called the side vocals. And we pretty much use the exact same settings, except for the VMR. I didn't use that top end, and I just pushed the hell out of that low end distortion, which is what we want.
Standing at the edge of the world, it's giving me the chills.
So yeah, we're just adding a lot of that big beefiness in there, and the top end was already there, so we just added it so a little bit more with the CLA plugin. Of course, we're using the compression, which I always like. We're using our de-esser, which actually had less because we didn't want to get that lispy sound that we had in the original verse, so I kind of reduced it by at least 20% there. And of course, the C4, we all know, our friend, and of course our vocal writer as well. And then, we got our quarter delays here. You can kind of hear them in the song. They're not too loud. So, we just got a wide vocal delay and VMR just to give that analog sound at the end of the day. Right? And we're using automation just to make it just a little bit so you can hear it. Not too much. It's not too wet. Okay? And there's also our plate vocal as well, which is not too much. You can kind of hear it on the trail ends where there's rests in the songs for the vocals, but other than that, it's very, very subtle. Very, very subtle. And that takes a lot of precision to do. So let's listen to it with the rest of it.
Standing at the edge of the world, it's giving me the chills. Looking down the edge of the world, lost in the tango, it's freaking me out.
As you can see here, I actually did some vocal automation anyway because the vocal writer couldn't do what I wanted to do, which was increase the volume at a certain part of the song. So I just did that manually there. Let's listen to that one part that came in. There was a riff guitar. You can hear these riff guitars here, which are very subtle in the actual recording. So let's listen to that. Okay, so at first it's just our eighth notes, and then we go into tremolo picking. And what I did for that pretty much was the same kind of setting, give that distortion, give it a little bit of the bigness, not too much as before. And surprisingly, I didn't really cut out any of the low end because, again, I didn't need to. You don't always have to. But I did use the CLA3A to push out, to just kind of push them out, because whenever I do like solo guitars with single notes, a lot of the notes can kind of lose itself. So you want to be able to, even that out so you could just do the rest of the automation manually without having to automate every single note. You're just automating the overall volume. See, it's not crazy. It's just about 5. So let's listen to it. Oh, God. Okay, let's look at this turnaround part. So we have a little Oz here. So at the beginning, with these Oz, I did want to give them like a wet effect, but I realized during listening to the song closely, it didn't actually have anything. It was just the room tone. So whatever Billy Joe recorded it in. So let's listen to these by itself. Pretty simple. That's pretty much it. I actually didn't do anything to them. I just left them because they're so low in the track, so they don't really make much of an impact. I guess I guess they do. I can't really say that, but like they're not in the forefront where you would notice those kind of things. And it sounded fine the way it was. I just left it alone. The only thing I really did was just turn off the reverbs, so it wouldn't sound too wet. That's pretty much it. And these ones you probably couldn't catch. They go little guitar licks, and they kind of mimic the main vocals melody. 1 second. Oh, sorry. Okay, so let's listen to that. Pretty simple. Nothing going on here. It's just, I think I just added top end actually. Yeah, just top end. Just to give it a little bit more bite, and then using volume automation from there. And then for verse 2, it's pretty much the same thing. I didn't really change anything else. I just kind of did the same kind of things I could do there. But there are these scream vocals, which I'm not too good at doing, but I did them. So let's listen to this here.
From the edge of the world!
So it's a double-tracked vocal, and I use the monster, actually, yeah, to give it... Whenever I do like gang vocals or scream vocals, I compress the out of them. Just so they had that really strong impact. And then it all just comes down to volume automation from there when you put them right underneath the side vocals.
From the edge of the world!
Right? I remember I'm in an apartment, so I can't really scream my lungs out, so I just tried to make it work without getting complaints from the neighbors. Okay, so let's see here. Chorus 2, that's fine. Let's see this turnaround part now. Okay, so this is probably my favorite part of the song because there's just this part. Andrew Sheps really went for that wall of sound with guitars, and I'm pretty sure if it was CLA or something, the solos would be a lot more upfront. But for this song, which is kind of weird for me, which I'd never really done, is I had to go put them really, really low. I had to listen closely, and I almost guessed on some of the parts of what I had to play. But I had to listen really, really closely as well and put them in very, very specific panning spots, which is weird because I'm usually an LCR guy. And if you don't know what LCR is just left, right, center. But for here, I'm using 60, 70 just to put them in those right spots. And that's when you can tell it's not a CLA production. And Angie Sheps apparently likes to put them and use like all of the spectrum for that as well. Anyway, so what did I do for the solos? Nothing. They sounded fine on their own. And if they were to lose any of the volume, which wasn't a problem because, you know, it's a big wall of guitar sound anyway, I kind of wanted them to be barely there. So let's listen to the main solo we have here.
Edge of the world.
So it's, you know, it's just your standard Billy Joe doing his octave thing, which only actually you can hear in the beginning part, and then after that it's gone. So after that I just kind of like doubled up on it with some single note stuff, just to give it a little bit more width.
Edge of the world.
So you can hear it. If you listen to the song, you can kind of hear it going up a little bit in an octave, and then you hear the harmonies come in at this part here. So then at this end part here, the left solo does go up a bit, and then you hear a little bit of a melody call out on the right side as well. So it's very subtle decisions, and I think Andrew Seps did a really good job with that. So let's listen to it again. All right, so that's that part. So now let's listen to Good Life, which is probably another fun part of the song. And this part really surprised me, what was included. And I don't think Green Day's ever done this before, or at least from what I've heard. But let's listen to it.
If this is what you call the good life, I want a better way to die. If this is what you call the good life, I want a better way to die.
Okay, we'll get to the breakdown soon. But okay, so what I wanted to point out here, you know, again, for those heavy wall guitar sounds, the drums do back off a bit. So I take out that snap from the snare drum and I bring up the overheads to get more of the beef sound, right? So we're not making the drums so bright. We have our oohs and ahs here, which are pretty just simple. You know, I just added some air to them, cut out the low end like crazy, and just make them sound breathy. And harmonies. We just add the harmonies using pretty much the same settings as the regular vocals and just squashing them with the CLA 2A. So let's take a quick listen to that.
If this is what you call the good life.
Okay, so it's just pretty much a simple sound. And I don't know why this is on armed. So let's listen to that again.
If this is what you call the good life.
Right, so it's just a harmony to the side vox, which actually go into the middle at this part, which took me a while. I didn't realize that to the end of the mix.
If this is what you call the good life.
Right, so it's pretty simple. Basic harmonies. Billy Joe likes to do left, right, center, and that's pretty much that. Now, let's listen to these quad guitars, which is the interesting part. So pretty much the rhythm guitars go down, gone. They're pretty much just this little back sound. Just keeps the rhythm going and doesn't have those empty, doesn't really have an empty sound. Just keeps, you know, it acts like a pad at that point, if you know what I mean, where it's just filling in the sound. But let's listen to this. The quad guitars. So I just added a little bit more brightness. I'm pretty sure Billy Joe used a different amp for that, but I was too lazy. So anyway, let's listen to both the guitars together. I want to take a quick note for those who want to play like Green Day. Again, it comes from a lot of the technique. For this part, of course, you can do an up-down stroke and just get that da-na-na-na-na sound. But Billy Joe loves, and I too love doing that thwacky downstroke sound, which is where a lot of where that punch comes from, especially when combined with the other instruments, which is what makes the Green Day production so attractive for me. So listen to these. So it's that thwack. And when you combine it all together,
If this is what you call a good life, I want a better way to die. If this is what you call a good life, I want a better way to die.
okay, so breakdown. I'll explain this once because it happens again in the end of the song. Pretty much what happens is by listening to the song, the bass goes up and the guitars go down, which is quite obviously what you might think. The guitars actually go down and the bass goes up, which gives it that thickness. Because when the guitars are too loud, it kind of just sounds kind of cheesy, I would say. It felt cheesy. Because then you can kind of hear the emptiness of the guitars and how they really are that empty without the bass. So I just made the bass go up and the guitars go down. And then we have the first time the acoustic riff comes in. And we're just, I added that brightness because the function of this acoustic guitar is just to add that string sound. So we're cutting out all that low end here and we're just adding top end. And we're cutting out any of that low end we don't need and balancing it out with some compression. Listen to the acoustic riff by itself. And whenever I want to add top end, I just use the revival because it really just works and it just sounds really good. So let's listen to it now. Just observe this part here just for the sake of time because I'm pretty sure this video is at like how long now? 40 minutes. It's like an hour long video. But yeah, so side vocals, same thing. We just brought them back to the sides and we're using them as a little bit of a subtle wideness tool.
Oh, I don't want to think about tomorrow. Don't wanna think about the world. It doesn't matter anyway.
So now we have a lead vocal in the middle, which is kind of mimicking the same kind of settings as the lead vocal, which I did use anyways. The C4. I just didn't use the CLA this time because it didn't really need to punch out as much. Because remember, this part of the song is kind of like a different part of the song. It's not like the same part, right? So. So let's listen to this vocal, the lead vocal by itself, and see what's going on with the effects.
Don't wanna think about the world. It doesn't matter anyway.
So we're using our quarter delays and something a wide delay, which I call a wide delay, which is kind of just a tape slap.
Don't wanna think about the world.
You can kind of hear in that subtle little 16th notes going back and forth, just to give it that width. Then we have our harmonies here, which again, same settings, didn't change a thing. But I'll reveal the secret. I didn't belt the shit out of this part. I actually just used my head voice. And I'm pretty sure Billy Joe uses head voice too, because there's no way you could belt that note. There's no way, man. Well, there is, but come on. Wow, Mason, why is it so distorted? Remember, guys, context of the song. Context of the song.
Don't wanna think about the world. It doesn't matter anyway.
It just adds subtle thickness to it. It doesn't. Remember, guys, you don't listen to a song in solo, right? So anyway, so that's pretty much that part. That all that's really new added. The breakdown is really quiet.
I wanna start a revolution. I wanna hear it on the radio. I'll put it off another day. I want a new conspiracy and the silence of 1,000 cries. So hurry up, I want a better way to die.
It's just again standard stuff, and we're just automating to make those harmonies not too loud. We're just in the back. Remember, wall of sound, which is what Andrew was going for, I think. We got our cleans here, right? Which just uses that reverb from before, which I was talking about, which is a nice Verb C collection, just a nice hall reverb. And also using that same quarter delay. No, I used my own guitar delay. Where's my guitar delay? I must have put it somewhere here. Guitar delay. There it is. So the guitar delay is just guitar space. I think it's just yeah. So it's half of eighth note and half a quarter note, which gives it that width. And just subtly put it in there.
And the silence of 1,000 cries. So hurry up, I want a better way to die. I'm running late to somewhere now that I don't want to be.
Right. So that part's just a very easy part. This part is really using arrangement to make and automation to make it sound big. So purposely for these parts, I made the acoustic guitar sound very quiet, and I made the vocal also quiet, so that when the breakdown comes in with the guitars, it sounds a lot larger, right?
I'm running late to somewhere now that I don't want to be.
Right? So what's that sound in here? It's a Swell Guitar. So I actually put nothing, no plugin at all. It sounded fine just the way it was, except for guitar delay, just to give it that width, right? So let's listen to the Swell. That's pretty much that. Then we have a clean guitar that comes in during the second part. Turn that off. Then we have a nice like 80s like kind of like distorted guitar. It sounds like a big stadium. Right? So that's pretty much that.
I never wanted to compromise or bargain with my soul. How did a life on the wild side ever get so full?
Right, so we have a little build-up guitar thing here, which is just I adjusted the amp settings and made them sound like thick. And also guitar tone on the guitar actually brought the tone down to give it that thick sound. So we're playing a lot with distortion, right? Right, so we have our oohs finally come in using our reverbs again, our hall reverbs. And what I did to these guys is use a silky vocals preset because I wanted to go for that airy sound, right? And I added the EQ, the air EQ myself, just to give it some top end as well. So you can listen to these by itself if you want. All one take. All one take. Right? And now these vocals change to Somewhere Now. And let's skip this part just because of sake of time. Where am I right now? 45 minutes. We're going to try and make this video an hour. But right. That's what I wanted to do. So let's talk about the way the harmonies change. So now the harmonies have to go up because now Billy's going for this. I want the harmonies to be like on par with the main vocal, you know? So let's listen to that.
Don't wanna think about tomorrow. Don't wanna think about the world. It doesn't matter anyway. I wanna start a revolution. I wanna hear it on the radio. Put it off another day.
So pretty standard stuff. It's a big wall of sound, so a lot of volume automation comes into play where you have to do some stuff, but I didn't have to. See? Sometimes you just don't have to. The guitars just kind of went into place exactly where I wanted them, and the bass did too. What I do want to talk about is when I Ain't Gonna Stand in Line comes in, we just have our vocals, and we just adjust the volume levels from there to balance everything out. So I call them outro main.
I ain't gonna stand in line no more. I ain't gonna stand in line no more.
Add the harmonies.
I ain't gonna stand in line no more. I ain't gonna stand in line no more.
And I hate that the Waves tune made it sound like fucking robots, but whatever. Listen to this part.
Don't wanna think about tomorrow. Don't wanna think about the world. It doesn't matter anyway.
And it just repeats. So they have a breakdown here, and I just want to skip to the these parts. So we just have our ahs from before at the beginning, but now we just added that reverb that we were talking about. We just added the reverb in and turned it on, as you can see there. And yeah, the solos are actually like two things going on here. So there's one that's just playing tremolos and the bends, I believe. No, these ones are just playing... What are they playing? So they're playing the bends. And then I have the other solos playing the kind of like 21st century breakdown kind of things. And we put them together. And that's Forever Now. Okay, I know I said 20 minutes, but this video ended up being 50 minutes to close to an hour. So I guess we could just call this a special A 1 hour special. This series is really not targeted for like casual kind of people. These are targeted for people who really want to learn what goes into a production and the mixing phase, especially. So I recommend you just watch this video, just have a cup of tea, sit down, and just have it in the back or something. And I'm probably gonna make annotations so that you can just skip to certain parts that you want to hear. So we're not sitting here for an hour. We can just look for specific parts. But yeah, thanks again for watching. As you can see, I take my Green Day covers really seriously. I try my best to, get the production, get the sounds right, get the playing right. Try to hear for every nuance that's in there. And I'm pretty sure I missed something. And if I did miss something, oh well. Again, we're not trying to sound exactly. We're not trying to sound exactly the same, but we're trying to, you want to do some justice. We don't want to just do a shitty cover of like one of the best songs on the album, right? So then again, all right. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for hanging in. If you're still here or if you skipped to the end, you can download the stems. Download the stems of the song, and you can also mix the song yourself if you want, or you can put your own vocals on top. I don't care. Doesn't matter. If you are going to use my stems in your own kind of covers, please give credit to me and try and bring them back to this video or my channel. I would appreciate that because I am giving them out for free because, again, it's not my song anyway. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. This was Behind the Music, the 1 hour special. And yeah, you got to go deep into my mind of how I was thinking. We got to learn about, different ways of production. Usually with the Green Day cover, it's going to be a CLA kind of style, and there'll be a lot different mixing style and a lot different production. If you're doing Andrew Shep's mix, which is Revolution Radio, there's a lot of different things. It's a lot more in-depth and a lot more difficult for me to do because I'm used to kind of CLA type mixing as well, right? So what did we learn from here? You tell me what you think you learned, what I can do to improve, and if you have any questions about any of these parts in this song, please don't hesitate to ask, leave a comment, like, share, subscribe with all the people that you want to hear and who are also interested in learning mixing as well. But this was Behind the Music, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm going to put annotation for, listening to the actual cover itself and other tutorial videos if you are interested in that as well. Okay, guys? So thanks a lot for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And stay tuned for next week where I will be releasing a new music video or something. And remember, you could always request a song for Green Day, and I will play that for you guys. Okay? So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.